Welcome to the round table. I am Jennifer Eller, and my co-host today is Mike Hill. And I wasn't going to say this, but today is his birthday, so happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday.
Nobody cares about birthdays when you're 51 years old.
Yes, they do.
People stop caring at like
We will
15.
We'll never stop caring
See,
about
there's
you.
like the 16th birthday,
Yeah?
21, right?
18.
Or
Yeah,
18,
18.
that's
I'll
right.
say
16, 18, 21.
After 21, who cares, right? Because last year was the whole like, let's do an over-the-hill party. What, just to remind me? I mean, is that what you really want to do? You just want to remind me that I'm 50 years old? I'm good with no reminders that I keep getting older.
Well,
but
sorry, we're going to celebrate you. So,
Thank
yes.
you.
Our producer, Nick Wilson.
Without a camera?
And then our guest today is Abbie Timmons.
Yay.
Hello, Abbie.
And she's a farmer.
Yeah, we're going to
So
get
that
into
just
that a little bit.
I know, but you got to throw that out there because that just makes her a special guest.
Well, I was going to say, so she is an HU student in ag.
I am, yes.
So, yeah, and you're from Michigan, and you
am.
live on a farm. So what
I
kind of
do.
farm do you live on? What do you do?
Yeah, so my farm's just basically a hobby farm. We do a cow-calf with Dexter cattle, and then I've always loved the goats. So we have a small herd of just Nigerian dwarfs, and we've had a little bit of everything. I mean, we had a mini horse, we've had chickens, we've had ducks, pigs,
Yeah.
a little bit of everything. You name it, we've done it.
Yeah.
Which has been fun. I was definitely blessed to have parents who also loved animals and let me live out my dreams.
So are you going to be so the ag program at HU, you're going to try to get into animals, or you're going to be like, nah, I'm into something else?
No, it's definitely the animals.
Okay.
So my major is ag business, animal production, and then I'm double majoring in ministry and missions.
Okay.
So definitely hard on the animal production side. I want to get into cattle genetics.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. So that's a big change lately.
It is.
Cattle genetics.
it is.
Yeah. So are you going to stay on the dairy side, or are you going to stay in this whole new beef cross side?
I want to do both, actually. I really want to do both. I love the dairy. Dairy's definitely where my passion is, but I'm also really intrigued by the whole show stock and getting those top-tier genetics. So.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's going to be a whole different shift from your small, because all the dairies are 2,200,
Yep.
5,000. I mean, there's even now like a lot of 10,000,
Yeah.
head dairies. So the whole like genetic element of all of that. And I think it's funny because people don't like realize that from a genetic standpoint, it has a lot to do with the milk you produce, and that if you don't have top end genetics, and you also can't sell high end milk, and yeah, there's a lot that goes into
There's
it.
so much.
More than I ever found. I have no idea what you're even talking about.
It's
Yeah,
so
but I think
Blows my mind.
it is a fast. I mean, just like right now, from a genetic and from a breeding standpoint, you can do sex semen now. So you can decide, I want a heifer or I want a bull.
Yeah.
And you can make that decision, and
Yep.
and you can choose like whether it's show stock or whether it's you're doing the just regular breeding. I mean, you can choose the bulls that you want to use with the right lines, and the certain genetics have an effect on the milk you get. And
Yeah.
like, it's a science.
It really is.
I mean, it's not even like go out and feed an animal. I mean,
Wow.
it's a for sure science. So anyway, that's off the subject, but it's pretty cool.
So do you have like a certain company you want to work for? I mean, I don't know anything about that world. I know seed and like the seed companies and stuff like that, but.
There's
so-
a few. I don't have any like set in stone, but kind of tossed around a few. There's ABS or like Gen X or Select Sires. So those would be some of the top tiers that would be
So
awesome.
where are they
to get in
located
with.
at? Like, where would you have to move to?
I would have to relocate.
Okay.
They're a little bit of everywhere, but for me, I'd want to stay mostly Midwest. So I'd have to at least go Indiana, Ohio, probably.
Okay.
But there's representatives for all
Yes.
of those around here.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean,
Is
they
there-
visit
okay.
our farm all the time.
Oh, okay.
Because we have all of those genetics that come through ours
Wow.
from dairies. So
Yeah.
we have
Wow.
a guy that'll come around and try to convince us to convince the dairies to switch.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
So you have the ABS guy saying, go to the dairy and tell them to switch to this because you want, because it has, on our side of it, it has a lot to do on what gets sold, anyway, on the other end. But all of those are,
Crazy.
if you had to relocate, where would you want to relocate?
Honestly, Indiana.
You would?
It feels the most like home.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not big into Ohio, just personal preference, but just personal preference. But I could see myself in Indiana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. So what's the last book that you have read? You a
Oh
reader?
man. I was a reader before college,
Okay,
and then
yeah.
college kind of just took over with all the different textbooks that I really never had time to read on the side. But, oh man, honestly, the last book I read was my devotional this morning. I'll be honest.
That's a good one.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Is it a
Yes.
good devotional? Is
It
it one
is
you
a
should
good
recommend to
devotional.
anybody?
I would recommend
Okay.
it. I don't remember who the author is, but
That's
it's
okay,
called
yeah.
Calm Your Anxious Mind, and it's great. I love it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So movies. You like watch movies, Netflix?
I
What's your
do. I'm a
passion?
movie person.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. They're easier than books to me. I just don't have to think about it that much, and I just get to sit there and watch it. So
What's
it's
your
kinda
favorite
nice.
kind of movie?
Rom-com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have one?
No.
Okay.
Probably not. Brie makes fun of me all the time. I like to jump around with movies. I don't just like get set on one. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this movie. I'm gonna watch it 10
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
That I can't do that. So I pick a new one and kind of just go with it.
Yeah. Funny. So Brie Allgaier is her roommate.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
So yes. So that's
How
how
is it being, are we allowed to ask her? How is it being roommates with Brie?
It's fun. She keeps me on my toes, that's for sure, but I love her to death.
Yes, yes, we love her
Yeah.
too. So Brie works at the cafe.
Yeah.
So if anybody knows her,
Can you go to sleep at night?
Yes.
I mean, that's the thing I would be thinking about. Like, Bree's a nonstop talker. and I'm
gosh.
thinking, man, I'd want to be with earphones on. Let's go to bed. But maybe she, like, winds down.
She does. She crashes.
Okay.
Anywhere between like 9:30 and 11, she's like, Abby, we're going to bed. So if there's homework or stuff I still need to do, I either have like my little light in the corner or I go out to the study lounge.
Oh my gosh.
So yes.
Wow.
But
Okay.
That's cute.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we met a few weeks ago, we kind of was learning about you. And so one of the things that you kind of shared that we wanted to talk on the podcast was about anxiety and depression.
Yeah.
That kind of started in high school, if I remember that right, and then carried over into college. So why don't you kind of tell us that story?
yeah. High school was a really, really rough time for me. I was homeschooled, and growing up, like, I took a lot of flack for being homeschooled. I was homeschooled before it was cool. So that's what I like to say. So just, like, going out in public with, like, my mom, she would do, like, trips with us where we would, like, go to the store, and, like, part of, like, our math would be, like, budgeting for the day or, like, something like that, and just more, like, practical things. But people would always, like, look at us weird, and sometimes people would, like, ask my mom, be like, why are your kids not in school? And then, like, she would have to explain to them, like, we were homeschooled. And so, like, growing up, that was just something that I was used to. And then in high school, when I was, like, starting to prepare for college, there were just a lot of people that were always like, there's no way you can go to college. Like, you were homeschooled. Like, how do you even think that that's, like, achievable for you? And I'm a go-getter, and so I'm somebody who's like, if you're going to tell me I can't, watch me
me
prove
do it,
you
yeah.
wrong. And so it always just kind of spurred me on. But the anxiety, that's something that I've dealt with ever since I was little. I've always naturally just been an anxious person, and yeah, it's been something that I've had to learn how to work through and adjust through, and it's definitely something that I bring to prayer a lot because it's hard. It's hard to deal with it in your day-to-day life and figure out how to overcome it, and you just never know when it's going to sneak up. The depression, that was new. That I got diagnosed with when I was in high school, and that was really hard to take. Growing up, I come from an absolutely amazing family. I love them to death. And so I was just stunned by, like, how in the world could I be depressed? Like, that just was never something that could ever cross my mind. Like, I have a great church family. I have great friends. Like, it never made sense. And so I still remember, like, the car ride home from the doctors and just, like, trying to, like, process all this and, like, what it means. And, yeah, it was definitely a dark time. And I did go to counseling for a little while, and it seemed to help. And so just kind of working through that and just working through the emotions of all of it and everything and processing it. And it was probably senior year that really was the worst. There were a lot of just friends or people that I thought were friends that kind of lied or, like, did stuff behind my back that I didn't know about, and just kind of, like, spiraled everything again. And I was getting ready to go to college. I proved people wrong. And so it was just, like, accepting, like, these things of, like, oh my gosh, like, everything that I have held so dearly and, like, everything that I do know is no longer going to be there. Like, all of my safety nets are gone. I'm going to be a freshman. Like, everything's going to be different. And I was so excited going into college because of having something new, though, too, because I was like, there's not going to be cliques. And a lot of people are like, Abbie, how did you experience cliques? You were homeschooled. Senior year, I went to a completely different program that I'd been in before, and so I was in all different classes. And the kids in the classes had already formed their groups because I was a senior coming in, and like they'd all been doing it for years together. And so that was really hard. I found myself at like tables by myself, or like only having like one or two friends, and like, yeah, it was just really hard. It definitely was a loneliness that I'd never experienced before. So then coming into college, I was excited to not have the cliques, and I quickly found that college is kind of cliquey too.
Life is cliquey.
Yeah. So surprise. And it was just a really rough transition then. And coming in, I was actually a pre-vet major. And
A what?
a pre-vet major.
What's prevent?
Pre-veterinary.
Vet.
Oh, vet. I'm like, what? Is there a new?
No.
Pre-vet. Okay, got it. Pre-vet.
Yeah, it was pre-vet. And there's just a lot of pressure that comes with pre-vet. Like, you have to have almost like a straight 4.0. And so I kind of like found myself falling back into just like this anxiety and depression of just holding myself to like this high standard and putting so much pressure on myself, really. And yeah, and then freshman year was just really awful. It just really was. There was just some interesting rooming situations, and it just made for a really awful time. Yeah.
Well, can I ask a few questions
Yeah, of
through
course.
that whole process? So,
Yeah.
one, this is the new trend, right? So
It is.
homeschooling is a new trend of like a lot of stuff going on in public schools, and a lot of people's answer to that is pull my kids out of school and do something different. So for you who've experienced it, whether it was when it was cool or not cool, any advice to parents that are processing this whole idea, what do I do? Because a lot of people are in those decisions. So for me, what are the advantages, disadvantages of being homeschooled?
Yeah, honestly, the flexibility, truly. Like, coming into college, I honestly didn't feel like it was any different than high school. Like, if anything, college was easier than high school for me, and which shocks a lot of people. But my parents chose, I was a part of Classical Conversations. And
what?
Classical Conversations.
Okay.
So it's a homeschool co-op.
Oh, okay.
And their programs are pretty excelled. And so I don't know, I was always being challenged by my work, and so it was always just something that, I don't know, I just grew up with that, and so the transition, school-wise, wasn't as bad. So I would say that's definitely an advantage. Like, college is still achievable whether you're homeschooled or not. Like, that doesn't...
Yeah, so how do you
That doesn't
answer
determine
the
that.
question of where everybody gets? Because this is everybody's big discussion of my kid's not going to be socialized, they're going to be weird, they're not going to know how to. I mean, you know what I mean?
Oh,
We
yeah.
homeschooled our
Oh,
kids
yeah.
for a season because ministry's like second shift, you know, and so a lot of times you don't get to see your kids if they're in school, and then
Yeah.
you're at work at night, and so we made the decision when the kids were younger. And then we put them back in because of sports. Like, you couldn't play sports, you couldn't be in anything back then,
Yeah.
you know, if you were homeschooled. But anyway, that's what everybody said to us. Your kids are going to be weird. They're never going to be able to socialize themselves. They're never going to get the social environment.
Yeah.
So is the social environment harder when you're not in school to be able to socialize when you get back in those environments, or not?
To some degree it is. My parents from the bat, when my mom told my dad that she was thinking about this idea of homeschooling, my dad was like, we're not having weird kids. And so he was like adamant, and so it was really funny, but we were just, I don't know, I really don't know how they did it, but
So
it's
socialization was
social.
not an issue.
It
for
really
you.
wasn't. No, like having church and having youth group and just all the different other outlets. Like, if anything, honestly, like, this might sound bad, kind of toot my own horn, but I feel like homeschoolers in some way are more socialized. But it definitely depends on the homeschooler, because there
Okay.
are some homeschoolers I know that I'm like, you fit the homeschool stereotype.
You're one of those
You
weird
are one
kids.
of those people. Yeah.
Right. Right.
So I think it definitely depends on like your environment and like how you are raised.
Right. So would you recommend parents
would.
homeschooling their kids?
I really would. I mean, especially like for my family, like growing up in a Christian household, like just being able to instill Christ into everything that we did and all of our work. And yeah, I mean, that's part of why I chose to go to a Christian college, is because I was like, I'm not going to do homework or any type of studying that doesn't involve
Right.
Christ. So
Yeah, so here's another big question.
Yeah.
So there's this argument out there that would say when it comes to anxiety, right? So you come from a Christian family, you grew up with a Christian foundation, and Scripture says don't be anxious, right? So when you are anxious, it's just because you're not grounded in Christ, right? Like you're the problem, you know, and I think what I've learned over the years is that it's a combination. There actually is a physical, mental, like there's something that you can't just write off everybody that's anxious that they're not grounded in Christ. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because I know for a lot of people today, probably more than ever, are struggling with anxiety, and they're trying to decide because, and I don't mean this bad, but some people just medicate to medicate because there is no answer that maybe could be answered with figuring out principles of life. And some people don't medicate because they're like, principles of life should fix it, like you shouldn't. So can you talk through, for our audience or for the people that are listening, how do you know? Like, how do you get to this place where, how do you incorporate Christ, and how do you know or understand the other elements that you need to bring in?
Yeah. I think it's important to know yourself to some degree. I do agree. I think it is twofold. I think you can take it back to Scripture and be like, yeah, the Bible obviously clearly says, like, do not be anxious. But I don't necessarily think that that's just a battle of, oh, I'm not grounded in my faith enough, or, oh, I'm not, like, trustworthy enough in God. I definitely think that it is a mental health battle as well. And combining the two, like I said, you have to know yourself to be able to know how to battle it in a way. It comes back to like your emotions and just being able to sort through that. And it's funny, my mentor, she loves the feelings wheel. And so whenever the feelings wheel, so it's a wheel that like breaks down all your emotions and everything and helps you sort through it all. And so honestly,
I need one of those.
Yeah,
You need one of those.
it's really helpful.
I've never heard of a
Can you
feelings
give me
wheel.
a feeling wheel?
That's pretty
I need
cool.
to
Yeah,
know.
just Google it.
Yeah, can you walk us through some tools that you use? So how do you work through your anxiety today with the both and?
Yeah. I think some things that like have definitely helped me is just being able to slow my mind down and like process, like thinking about like, okay, where am I? Am I feeling right now? What can I ground myself to? So like even just like touching something physical where it's like it just resets in your brain that like it's okay. There's something like around you or something comforting. Kind of talking yourself off that ledge where it's like you're so panicky that like you're shaking, and just being like, you can breathe, and just like resetting your mind and taking deep breaths. And I know there's a lot of different breathing ones out there. There's like count to 3.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of different breathing methods. So those have helped me a lot.
Okay. Is there things that then, so when you combine the scriptural part of it, so you go through the breathing techniques, or you go through the feelings wheel, and then, or whatever that stuff is from those tools, is there certain scripture that you go to, or is it just being in the Word in general? Is it through prayer? Like, how do you help offset both of those things?
Yeah, honestly, both. There's something, it's called breath prayers, and so you literally combine the two. And so you take a piece of scripture and you pray through it while regulating your breathing. And that's something that I've also found is really helpful, and it
Can
works.
people find that somewhere?
Yeah, you can Google it.
You just Google it.
Yeah.
Breath prayers.
Yeah, breath prayers.
Wow. Okay, that's
And so you
cool.
can literally take any piece of scripture and apply it to whatever type of prayer that you feel you need to pray in the moment, and then just kind of work yourself down with that. And so, yeah, I mean, you can take it to scriptures specifically talking about anxiety or like needing peace or something like that, or something completely different.
Is it good for you to find devotionals that deal with anxiety or depression to be able to help offset that, or does it matter?
I don't know. I have mixed feelings. I feel like in some ways it does help, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know. After you get into the routine of it, it just kind of feels like it's just another devotion.
Okay.
So, I don't know.
Would
That
you
one's-
recommend counseling?
I actually
people?
would. I mean, even if it's just like a mentorship and it's not quite so much of
Okay.
like even counseling, just having somebody to talk to and somebody who understands or has a little bit more psychological understanding than you do is, I mean, it's incredible.
So a mentoring relationship to help you walk through
At
those
least,
journeys.
yeah.
And so can you describe a little bit about your mentor and how she or he has helped you in the process?
Yeah. She's amazing. She sometimes, I'm trying to think how I want to go with this. Usually we'll just come in and like she'll be like, hey, is there anything like on your mind, anything we need to talk about? And like if there's something specific, we'll talk about it. And I don't know, do you guys know the Enneagram at all?
A little bit.
A little bit.
I know it because Nichelle used to tell me what number I was all the
Okay.
time. And
Yeah,
then
that's all I-
remind me.
that's all
I
I
can't
know.
remember what number I was, or do you remember, Nick?
You're a 1.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
No, it's okay.
Is one a bad thing?
No. I'm a 9-wing one, so it's okay.
Okay. So we're not that far apart.
No, we're really not.
Okay, good.
But I always thought I was a 6, and I found out that a 6 is what a 9 goes to when they're unhealthy. And I was like, that's so interesting.
So can you, again, just for our audience that's
Yeah.
listening, can you describe a little bit how the Enneagram has helped you? So what did it tell you about yourself that helps you? So
Yeah.
because it's a tool just like
It
a
is.
Strength Finder or anything. It's a tool that
Yes.
would say, this is a little bit about who you are. So can you describe, so you're a 9-wing one.
Yes.
So describe what is it that you learned about yourself that has helped you in that process? Because I would agree, there's a lot of value in Strengths Finders and like learning more about yourself. So
Yeah. I wouldn't
I
say
just
that
don't want to
the-
skip over like
No. Yeah.
people that don't know.
The Enneagram, I mean, I wouldn't say it's like a perfect, like, oh my goodness, you're a 1 or you're a 9 or whatever. Like, that, don't put yourself into that category
Okay.
necessarily. But I do think it's beneficial because it helps you learn more about yourself and just helps you, I mean, depending on, there's 9 different numbers, 1 through 9. That help you, and they just kind of explain like your personality or like what you go to when you're angry or what you go to when you're healthy, and just different correlations between the ones. And I don't know, it's just been beneficial to be like, oh, okay, that's how my brain will sometimes track.
So how would people do an Enneagram? How do they know? How do they figure it out?
There's a lot of different Enneagram tests that you can take.
Okay.
Which
Google
I mean,
it
is,
too?
Yeah.
Let's Google.
Google.
Google's
The
everything.
answer to everything.
Everything is just Google Enneagram.
Yes.
They can fill it out.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm pretty sure it's free. Otherwise, there's tons of Enneagram books, which I find those more fascinating. But
Okay.
yeah.
So then back to your mentor. So she,
Yeah.
what's going on in your life, and she uses the Enneagram, or you.
Yeah. So I was kind of a mess because I'm like, I don't really know like who I am. Like I'm freaking out. Like I always joke, I'm like, I'm having like a midlife crisis. And
So is this somebody that you met here at HU, or is it someone from back home, or
yes, she's my mentor at HU.
at
so,
HU? Okay,
yes.
so
How'd you
she
get
like
one? Sorry. Keep going.
No, that's okay.
Say it, Jennifer.
no, I just want to see like how much older is she? Is she like 5 years older? Is it or 10 years older or 20 or? Like,
I think
what's
she's 23,
so she's not that much older.
so
than you
not
then.
that much older. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yep.
Okay, now ask your question.
No, I'm sorry. How did you get it? Did you apply for one? You say I want one.
So you can through Huntington.
Okay.
But I'm also a sojourner. So which a sojourner, we're just like the old name for us was campus ministry coordinators, but then they changed it to sojourners. And so basically, I just help lead like spiritual life on my campus at Huntington, and we have to do one-on-ones every week with a mentor. And so that's how I got a mentor.
I think everybody should have a mentor.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. So your mentors helped you through the process by helping you
Yes.
understand.
Yeah, it just helps
yourself.
you kind of discover yourself. And like there were things that she brought up that I was like, oh my goodness, I never thought that could be a trigger of that emotion, or like I never thought that like that could be part of why I'm anxious, or just different things that I never realized about myself before,
Right.
or like different things that I was like, oh my goodness, I never fully processed that. Like that's why it's triggering this feeling, and just the vicious cycle.
Yes. So can we talk a little bit about depression? Because
Yeah.
that's a big thing lately.
It is.
Well, I don't know if it's lately. I would assume it's been a big thing all of the time, but it's more, it seems like it's become more prevalent, right?
Yeah.
Lately, of depression that leads to suicide, and again, more suicides in young people than we've ever seen before.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to me because it used to be that there was a stereotype for kids that commit suicide, or people that commit suicide. So the stereotype before was, oh, you're a kid from a broken home,
Yeah.
or you didn't know the Lord, or you got addicted to something, or you just went down this black hole, and that's why you became depressed and suicidal, which led to the things. But there are more depression and suicide in kids that grow up in perfectly normal homes with incredible families with no reason.
Yeah.
That, again, I put it in quotations for anybody that's not watching, is
Yeah.
because the response, and I say this because we need to learn this, because if you're on the lookout, you see people that grow up in a Christian home with everything that's fine, be like, why would I ever think that you would be depressed? I mean, you
Yeah.
got everything. You got everything you need. You got
Yep.
both parents are at home. You're not in trouble. You're not sexually promiscuous. You're not. You know what I mean? You're not in this class of, And honestly, I think these are the forgotten kids. And it's the thing that almost scares me the most moving forward, because I think there are a group of, you would never believe that that person is depressed. They never show signs, and that person would never be suicidal. And I think this is the next thing that we're going to see of more of that coming prevalent. So can you talk as much as you can about that journey of, because people's response is like, why wouldn't you be happy? You have everything that you need. So can you talk through what that looked like for you?
Yeah, that's definitely something that I personally have struggled with, because for me, I've gone back to that stereotype. I'm like, I don't fit the stereotype. Like, why do I feel this way? And I don't really have full answers, to be honest. But I think for me, it's just, I guess my solution is just knowing that, like, for me, my joy is rooted in Christ, and joy and happiness are two very different things. And so there may be days where I'm not happy, but that doesn't mean that I can't be joyful. And so I would say that's definitely my stepping stone. And then also realizing, like, every day isn't going to be the same. Like, it's okay if some days are a little bit harder to get through versus other days. And I think it's a lot of grace. Like, that you have to give yourself a lot of grace throughout it.
Because you think being hard on yourself led you to some of the...
I would say to some degree, yeah. I'm really hard on myself. So, yeah, I don't know how, I really don't know how I became depressed. I mean, I'm from Michigan, so, like, we get seasonal depression a lot, which, I mean, I get that too, but which they have little therapy lamps, which are really great too. If you need if you need some extra sunlight and vitamin D, get a therapy lamp.
So when did you figure out that, like, this is more than being unhappy? You know, because I think that's the thing that people, so for people that are listening or watching, how do you understand? Because once you understand that you have, because I honestly just don't think it's an unhappy. Like, I think it's just, I don't know if sickness is the right word.
Close to it. It's a mental sickness.
Yeah, that you actually need to identify, because if you don't learn to deal with it, I think it can turn into, you know, places that you can end up. So how did you know that it's not like, oh, I'm just not happy today, or the sun ain't shining, so, or the cows aren't cooperating, or, you know what I mean? Like, it's just not a normal. How did you know that it was beyond that? How did you identify that?
Yeah, for me, it became like my character was shifting. It was like, normally I wanted to be outside, like I was super motivated, and it was like I just didn't care. Like sitting inside all day was perfectly fine, and that is not me. And that's honestly was when my parents were like, you're not okay. Which I shouldn't say that that's like, oh my goodness, the only moment, but that was definitely a moment that even like clicked in my own head when my parents were like, Abbie, why do you not want to go outside or like be outside? And that's so unlike me. I'm an outdoors kid. Like, I want to be outside all the time. Yeah, that doesn't really fully answer your question, but
well, I mean, it does, because there is a difference between I had a bad day, and I don't want to get out of bed.
Yeah, I think it's when you hit like a valley, and it's just like, I don't know, feelings of isolation and just abnormalities about yourself, and just, yeah, I mean, some could argue it's just having a really mental bad day, but I don't think.
Yeah.
I think there's a deeper cause.
At least for people that I've talked to or see, it's like there's bad days. You know, you have days you're just like, I'm tired, I'm exhausted. But when you lose motivation for life, not that extreme, but when you lose motivation and it goes longer than a day.
Yes.
You know, I think probably should start processing that idea. Because I feel like I'm not I don't struggle with depression, but after Sherry died, I was like, I honestly, I wonder if I'm depressed, because I have no motivation to do anything.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like I'm a decently motivated guy, and I'm like, I would lay on the side of the bed and I'd look out the window. I'm like, is this because I'm lazy? Is this because I'm tired? Is this because, and then I found out, you know what? This is bad.
Yeah.
Like, I had never been in a mental state like that. And I'm thinking, and that's what I want you to kind of talk about, because this is where I think people get stuck. How do you get out of the pit?
Yeah.
You know, because once you're there.
Because something has to happen.
Yes.
I mean, there's trauma of some sort, of some level, that this happened and you walk through it.
Yes.
So, yeah, for you, it was the death of your wife, you know, and all that led up to it. And here we are, you know. So is there something that happened in your life that you can like pinpoint, and maybe you can't, but you're like, as you've like processed, why was I in that spot?
Honestly, no. Like, there wasn't really a big traumatic event, which is still, like, why it was just so hard for me to be able to accept it, I guess. I mean, maybe it was being or feeling isolated or just, not really knowing where to turn, or just my own, like, insecurities of identity. I'm really not.
Oh, probably. You know,
Yeah.
when you're thrown into a new situation, a school situation,
Yeah.
and it wasn't what you thought it was. And so life just turned upside down
Yeah.
for you. And so you're still trying to go and you're still trying to do, but it's just not,
Yeah.
it's not working. And, you know, our emotions are big. Women's
They are.
emotions are big.
They
you
are.
know? And so,
Yeah.
But I think you're right, Jennifer. I think the triggers, so they don't have to be hugely
Huge, no.
traumatic triggers of somebody dying, but there are certain
Yes.
things in life
Yeah.
that trigger an emotion that moves us to a pit.
Yes.
You know, and so you talked a little bit about, like, once I recognized that, wow, man, I do have this tendency.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think it's a lot of courage for you to admit it, because
for
I
sure.
think
Thank
nobody
you.
wants to admit it. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think anybody wants to admit it. In fact, I didn't even know if I wanted to say that, you know, because even when it happened to me, I'm thinking, if I tell somebody that, I think I'm going to be, like, psychotic or weird, or, like, if you tell somebody, I'm just saying, I think that it becomes we need to check on you, or we need to see what's
Yeah.
going on. So I'm almost like, I don't even really want to tell anybody, you know, does it show weakness because you're depressed or whatever that. So you talked about, like, that was a struggle.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that in depression, whether it's you struggle a little or you struggle a lot, are there things that help get you back out of it? Like, people coming in to talk to you, was it helpful that your mom did? Because I think what we have to learn, we have a part and you have a part,
Yeah.
right? It's not just alone. Just like
No.
your mentor and the things that she can do helps you through anxiety. Because I think I want our audience to learn you can't do it on your own.
You
Like,
can't,
anybody
no.
that believes that you can just fight through, right? Or anybody that thinks you just got to think differently. I
Yeah.
just don't think those things are true. Like, I
No.
don't think with its anxiety, and I for sure don't think it's depression. Like, just think happy
No.
thoughts and you're going to be happy, or just stop whining all the time, or just grab the sides of the wall and pull yourself out of a pit. So can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about how you help, or who has helped, and maybe it's the same techniques, but
Yeah.
how that's worked?
Yeah, I would say the first thing is definitely admitting it. Like, that was the hardest thing for me to come to, is actually, like, admitting, okay, I do struggle with these things, and then figuring out, okay, where do I go from here? Because I do have this knowledge now of what's actually going on. And the other thing is realizing you're not alone. I went to a youth event, and my eyes were, like, open to seeing just how many other people struggle with the same thing that I did. And I was like, oh my goodness, why did I ever just not tell anyone? Like, it would have been so much easier. Like, there's a community that will come around you. And then for
Was
me,
that hard?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard. It really is. It's not easy. But there's a lot of freedom in being able to admit it. And for me, after that, it was really just, like, starting from scratch. Like, I just went through and I took my Bible and I just wrote down, like, all the qualities that I know about myself and about my identity, and really just went from there. And I was like, this is who I am. This is who God says I am. And, like, I am chosen. I am loved. And so, like, all of these feelings aren't adequate to what God tells me. And so just slowly by slowly, like, rebuilding what you believe about yourself, because it is your mind. I mean, it is a mental battle. And it's hard because you live with yourself, and so you live with those thoughts. And so it's really reframing your mind.
Yeah. Because sorry.
no, I was just thinking of, like, 2 years ago when I was probably at the darkest place I've ever been in my life, you know, and knowing that Christ was the only one that was going to help me, you know, and to sit with him and read things and day after day and just ask for him to take what was, like, burdening me away. You know, it's a process, and but if you don't have that relationship with Christ, I mean, how would you get out of that? You
Yeah.
know, it's like, I would hate to go through the valleys without him, you know, because it's like, life is hard. Yeah. So that just made me think of that, how you just have to keep sitting with him over and over again. And eventually, there's no time limit,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
on when those times are when you're going to get out of that. But if you just keep seeking him and keep asking for him to take those thoughts, whatever the mind things, and slowly but surely. I remember listening to certain songs. I had a list of songs and I would sit down and
Really?
like,
Songs would help
I
you?
did. I would sing certain ones and then it's like, oh, that's a good one. And then my songs would change. I don't go to those anymore. There's other ones that I go to, but yes, I love to worship. I love to sing. I love to like hear scripture and songs. And that is just one of my favorite things is to like sit in my office and I turn them on.
So
and
were
sing.
you the same way, Jennifer? So was it hard to admit that you were, I mean, were you depressed?
I could have been. I didn't really tell anybody. It was
How come?
something.
You
I don't
listen
know.
to Abbie. She's just telling
I
you.
didn't know Abbie then. I do now.
I mean, did you not because you didn't want to? Like, I'm interested in that whole thing. Was it just hard to say, like, I'm depressed? Like,
I didn't because I didn't want to admit what I was struggling with in my mind. It was something that I had to deal with myself. Yeah. Could I have told people? For sure. Would have people loved me through it? For sure. But it was just something that I told people, but I didn't tell them I told them what I wanted them to hear.
okay. Yeah. Because I'm
No,
just
it's the
interested.
truth.
Like, that's because I would assume
Yeah.
that what Abbie said, that might actually be one of the biggest hurdles, right? Is getting to the
for
place where
sure.
you just admit, you know what, I'm not all right. Like, I'm just not okay.
Yep.
And it's not even that I'm having a bad day. Like, I am in a pit
Yes.
and I am depressed and these are the things that I'm struggling with. And I just wonder, like, how much freedom, that's the word you used. Like, that really struck me when you said it. How much freedom could we just have if we just admit it? And anything.
Yeah.
The sins that we're in, the struggles that we're in, the anxiety that we're struggling with, the depression. So why don't we? Why don't we?
It's
Because we
fear.
should.
Fear?
Because
I think it's fear.
Really?
you keep all that bottled up and Satan's got a hold on you. You bring it to light and there is that you're out of that bondage.
Yeah.
You just talked about that not too long ago. And it's,
Yeah.
it's like, it's like, why don't we feel like we have those safe places that we can, you have your mentor, you have some that say that no matter what you say, you can say it to her, no judgment. This is where I'm at. And you move forward.
Yeah, somebody brought that up a couple podcasts ago. I don't remember when it was. And this is why I say everybody should like counselors have a place, and I think counselors are good.
Yeah.
But I think everybody should have a mentor. Everybody should have a coach. I think it's the best money invested and best time invested you'll ever have in your entire life. Because
agree.
if you get a good one, it's the one person you can come and say, you know what? Because it doesn't have to be a counselor.
No.
Right? You can find the mentor. You know what? I'm having this sucks. This is where I'm at. This is what's going on. And again, mentors or the coaching aspect are going to be like, you know what? Let me help you build some tools. Let me help you build a toolbox, right? It's going to help you get out of the places that you're in, and that's why, I've always struggled with. Do people just have a fear to have a mentor? Do people just like, if I have one, then people are going to think I can't do it on my own? And I'm like, are you crazy? You can't do it on your own.
Yeah.
I've had a mentor. Vic Reinhardt's been my mentor for years, 20 years, and he's a guy that I can go to and he's going to set me straight. There's going to be times where he's going to be like, you're an idiot. That's why you're in the pit, because you're an idiot. You need to think differently.
Yeah.
You need to process differently.
Yeah.
You need to, you need to get, and then he's going to be the guy that's going to be when it's not good and there's nothing to say. He didn't have to say anything. He's just going to be there and help.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to show up and do the things that no one else is going to do in your life. And so I just think it's such an amazing tool to be able to have. But Abbie, can you talk through the idea of why do you think people fear it? Why do you think people fear admitting?
Yeah. I think it's scary. I mean, I know that's kind of the same word as fear, but it is. I mean, you're bringing something that only you have thought about and only you have held close to yourself to light. And I mean, like Jennifer said, like, it is something that Satan has a bondage on you with. And so when you're bringing it to light, like, it's even more difficult because he has that hold. But there truly is a freedom of watching the bondage break and those chains fall, of bringing it to light. And I mean, I think you have to be careful who you do talk to and who you do share with, because, I mean, that was, I think, where some of the depression stemmed from, is just not having the right friends and people that I trusted but probably shouldn't have. And so, yeah, I think it's important, but I do think that there's freedom when you share it. And
Yeah. So we're getting close to the end. So let's talk through this idea. So you gave us some, like, identify tools, like I was in it. This is what helped get it out. So what about guard against? because I think that's the other part. I think there's a whole nother level that would say, now there are some things, once you know, because I mean, I'm so proud of you, the idea of like, I admitted it, this is where I am.
Thank you.
These are the things. I mean, that takes tons of courage, but it also takes tons of effort to put boundaries. God, like, I know that I struggle with my identity. Like, that's something you said. Like, so I wrote down all the things that I am, but there are a lot of things that are going to tell you who you're not.
Yeah.
So there's got to be boundaries in place. So can you talk through for our listeners, even for you personally, or maybe what you would recommend, especially maybe to young girls, like put these boundaries in place, because if you don't, you can do all of these things, but you're still going to be back in the pit again.
That's hard. That's so open. Man.
We said one, friends.
Yes.
Right? Like one of the things you said is you better have a good boundary when it comes to who you surround yourself with.
Yeah, I would say that's the most important part is starting off having good friends. Like, you need community. That's something that no doubt you need community, but making sure that the people that you do surround yourself with are ones that are going to build you up, or that in times are going to set you straight and be like, hey, so you need good accountable people. I think it's also something that you personally have to be willing to work on yourself. I think that while yes, you need community, but yes, you also, like, it is a battle between your mind, and so ultimately that is, like, something that you're going to have to, after you admit it, like, take ownership of it too and be like, okay, like, I am going to work through these feelings, and, like, it is worth it, because, like, there is joy on the other side. And if that is sitting down with a mentor, like, having them work through it with you.
Does social media have any effect?
I think social media has a ton of effect. Social media sucks. Honestly. I don't
Nick.
like social media. I really don't. I think it puts such a hard, I think that's where a lot of identity problems, especially for girls, does come from. And I think that's the quickest way to fall, like, back into it, if you are struggling mentally, is to just go scroll on social media. Like,
Okay. So did you get rid of it?
I have.
Okay.
Yeah, certain ones, like specifically Snapchat, like,
Okay.
I was like, it's not worth it. It's just not worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you did. So again, so we don't make Nick too mad, since he's the social media guru. And again, Nick has lots of great points. Like,
Yes.
it is incredible how many people have been reached for Christ when Nick talks about through online and social media. It is pretty incredible.
It is.
But there is that, like, I got to identify what's not good for me.
Yes.
Right. And I think that's what Nick has always said. Like, listen, don't throw what's the saying? Baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
I think that's a saying, right? Like, you don't just whatever.
Sure.
Well, is that not a saying?
I think it is. I think it is.
See,
You are older than
she's
me,
an old
so-
soul, right?
Yeah, so,
she
you know, you're
knows
older
those.
than me.
But the idea is just, so for you, you recognized again, this is my weakness. These are the things that are not good, so I can eliminate this, but I don't have to eliminate it all.
Yes.
Right? Like, you wouldn't recommend to people out there get rid of all social media.
No, I wouldn't say so. I mean, social media as a whole, I wouldn't say is bad, but just certain aspects of it that I think definitely, they alter our brains. Like, they alter the chemistry, and we can easily get into habits with it. And so I think it's just, I mean, if you know that about yourself, then set a limit. I mean, our phones have limits. Set a 30-minute limit or something to just
They do?
break that habit. Yeah, they do.
Or even, like, you know, sometimes you can unfriend someone or unfollow somebody.
That
so
too,
if there's
yes.
somebody who is, like, makes you go down some toxic roads, it's like, then
How do you do that? Like, if you're on your Instagram, there's ways to, like, not see things?
I don't know on Instagram. I'm
Okay.
not on it. But I know on Facebook that you can go up and you can click, like, your friend, and you can say, like, unfollow or
And
unfriend.
you just don't see that
And you
stuff.
can, like, unfollow where they just don't come up on your timeline. And so you get rid of those, like, thoughts. If they take you down a path that you shouldn't be,
Yeah.
it's like, just,
Hey, I
it.
learned this, that, like, the more you look at certain things, the more it ends up in your feed. Right?
That too.
So you could alter in a good way. This is what they told me. I don't know if it's true or not. It's
It is
true, Nick?
It's true, yeah.
So I was told, as being chastised about social media, they're like, well, you can say all those things, but you can, like, you're getting on TikTok, but you can control
You can.
the majority, not all, but
Not
the
all of it.
majority of, like, so if you want things that are uplifting, or if you want things that are centered around Christ, they said, I've never tried this, but they said, if you do certain things on TikTok, then you will not only, but the majority of what you get will be that.
Yeah.
Is that true, Nick?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right? So back to those things, if you're going to be on social media, then choose your whatever.
Just
Yeah.
like in person.
Do what?
Just like in person. Like you want to choose the people that you're around.
So talk through that a little bit.
No, well, I think it's the exact same thing.
Okay.
Like online, you need to choose who you follow
Okay.
because of what you put in, you put out.
Okay.
So it's the same thing in person as it is online.
So if you want to alter somebody, if you want to alter your feed to be things that you want it to be, so it's who you put yourself around and what you like. I mean, I'm asking this as an
Yeah.
ignorant question. Like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
okay. So if you, whatever you heart or like or whatever those things are, then changes the algorithm of what you get.
Yeah. Whatever you give attention to, it's going to start giving attention back.
Yeah.
Okay. So, final things. If
Yes.
you were going to talk to, because I would say you're going to talk to a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, anybody that's struggling with anxiety or depression, any final words of wisdom that you would sum it all up and say, if you could pick 2 things or 3 things or 1 thing, do this because this is going to help you. Because I would think that, especially for women, I think struggling with emotions and in their mind, not that it's just a woman thing, but I do think it's a more of a thing for them. What would you
Yeah.
say?
I know I've already said some of this, but first of all, like, admit it. Like, truly, I think you'll find it healthiest when you just admit that that is what you're struggling with, and then find somebody that you can confide in and that you can will just listen to you. And even if it's just somebody who sits and listens and doesn't even give you feedback, just somebody who can hear you out. And then kind of know your own patterns of like your mind and like what you might be able to like kind of go into more, or just things that you might be more susceptible to like fall down that path. But yeah, I would say also just, I mean, I know it helped me, so it's not going to help everybody, but just being able to write down things that are true and just going back to the Bible. Like for me, being a Christian throughout my whole battle with it, it's just always going back to the Bible. And honestly, I think you will be surprised at how many other people do struggle with it. I was a camp counselor this past summer, and it was one of the most redeeming moments because I had a little girl who just all of a sudden broke down sobbing. And she was like, I never knew that somebody even your age dealt with something like this. And I was like, oh my goodness, okay. Like, okay, God, that's such a cool moment. And so it was cool to just even, well, not cool that like she struggles with it, but cool to just be able to like help her walk through it and too. So yeah, I mean, share your story, honestly. That was something that, honestly, up until being on this podcast that I've been scared to do. Like, it's just, I don't know. And so I think just get it out there.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm super proud of you because I am a believer in story changes lives. And so somebody to have the courage to share what they struggled with, because that's not easy to do, but then also share on the other side of this.
Yeah.
There is things that God can do, and ways that God can redeem and ways that you can live a healthy life. Because I think you're the future of what people are going to be struggling with. I think that it's this forgotten generation of kids that did grow up in good homes, people that did seem perfectly normal on the outside, that are going to be the next wave that if we don't do something about and they don't admit it, they don't surround themselves with people that are right, they don't tell their story, they don't get the help that they need, that's the next wave of things that I think are going to be critical in the mental health crisis that we're having today. Because I think so many people have focused on the typical people who have mental health and have left this part of it out. So
It's in isolation.
yeah. Yeah, so thanks for sharing your story.
Yeah, of course.
So when this comes out, make sure that you like, comment, or share. That way we can get Abbie's story out to as many people as possible. And again, and I would just say, like, if you're struggling, reach out. Like, find somebody. Like, comment in, in any of the posts that we have. If you're struggling, don't do it alone.
Yeah.
And somebody from our staff or somebody from resources that we can help put involved, don't leave it as I watch this and I recognize and I'm struggling with it, but I don't want to do anything about it because I have fear. So we're going to pray that, God overcomes those fears and that you can admit that those things are out there. And if you comment, we'll respond. Like, we'll figure out how to help get you the help that you need to be able to get through those things, because even if it's just a small struggle, small struggles can turn into
Yes.
life-altering events. So if you're there, make sure that you comment, and we can get back to you and help you through that process. And Abbie, just thank you for your story, and thanks for everything that tools that you've been able to give people, and we look forward to seeing what God continues to do to your life.
Thank you.
Not to your life. What
your
God
life.
continues to do in your life. So thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Great job.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
That was-
Was that good?
Yeah.